Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Creative Differences Podcast, the podcast where we take turns being out of our depth when it comes to the topic. I'm Dallas, and roughly 25% of this episode is just brought to you by nostalgia, because some of us don't be reading like that anymore.
Hi, 25% of this episode is brought to you by romance novels, because I also don't be reading like that anymore.
I'm not going to give percentages. I don't like percentages. What up? I'm Cassie. I'm a new woman. Talk to me about it.
Woo!
And I'm Demi, and 25% of this episode is being brought to you by fantasy novels. And
a baby.
So sorry.
Hey guys, just so you know, there will be a baby on this podcast today. Welcome to another episode of the Creative Differences Podcast, your one-stop shop for movie reviews, Fancast Fridays, Throwback Thursdays, and a number of other pop culture related items. Today, if you guys couldn't tell, we're going to be talking about books, which is something that we don't talk about on this podcast ever.
You know what's annoying is she was silent.
She waited. She was like, oh, we good? You ready? Where my mic at?
She literally was so quiet. Up until now, we really thought we were going to do this.
Yeah.
She wants to
be involved in the conversation. What's your favorite book? Yo, Jimmy Jam, what's your favorite book, bro?
Our favorite book is, it's this Small World Disney book. And she loves that so much that she ripped it up already.
All right, guys. So that's your answer from the 1-year-old.
Yes. Something tells me you're going to get a lot more from the 1-year-old.
Yep. All right. Like and subscribe, dudes.
Like and subscribe so we can build an audience and afford babysitters.
Yep.
All right, guys, top 5 Tuesdays. You guys know how this goes. We are going to list off our favorite books in order 5 to 1. And sorry, that was actually me legitimately taking a pause.
Good timing.
Yeah. Whenever somebody names off a book or book series that is higher up on somebody else's list, they are going to call skip, and we're going to wait until it reaches the highest point in somebody else's list before we talk about it.
Yes, for example, if Gaby's number 5 is This Hoe Got Roaches in Her Crib.
Oh my God, Eric said that to me. Oh, I'm mad that I heard of that book.
Yes.
Oh.
And if that's Demi's number 1, Demi will yell skip, and then we will talk about This Hoe Got Roaches in Her Crib.
As you can tell, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, shout out Quan Mills. I was like, which Quan Mills book do I want to use for this example? This Hoe Got Roaches in Her Crib.
I'm so upset
The
that
best
I know
choice.
that.
Yeah.
But also, I love that you do.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Oh, man. So we should start off with number 5, as I said. And we always start with Dallas.
Yep. Or Jim Jim. The baby wants to start first.
We're going to buy you your own microphone.
As stated in the rambling I do in the beginning, what happened?
I've lied.
You lied.
Honorable mentions.
Oh yeah, honorable mentions.
Honor. Some
Yes.
of these have honor, some of them don't, but honor.
Yes. And Cassie doesn't believe in honor, as we've established with our list episodes.
I have one this time, bitch.
You? What?
Oh,
You went and found some honor?
What?
You are a new woman.
Yes. You know why? It's because she reads so much. She got honor.
That's fair.
She reads a
No,
lot.
this is just a
more
special
There is
one,
honor in
but
reading.
There is honor in reading. Do more of it.
Dallas, do you have any honorable mentions?
Of course not. I barely got 5 books.
That's fair.
Trash.
Gabby, do you have any honorable mentions?
I do have honorable mentions. My honorable mentions are Love Hypothesis and Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood, and also Bringing Down the Duke and Portrait of a Scotsman by E.B. Dunmore. Those are my 4.
Nice.
I love all those books by all those authors. Ali Hazelwood's my number 1, but we'll find out more about her later.
Hey, yo, Cass, give us your first ever honorable mention on this podcast.
All
It's a
right.
podcast of first today.
My honorable mention is, well, I don't know what the actual series is called because the author doesn't know what the series is called yet, but I'll just call it the Death List Trilogy because that's what the first book is called, by Stephen Lewis, who I used to date. Shout out to my ex, who writes really good books.
Ooh.
They are legit really good.
Whoa.
I have read the first 2 or 3 and they are very good.
All right, well, we'll get back to that later.
That's wild.
My honorable mentions list: The Black Tattoo by Sam Enthoven, Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie, The Visual Story by Bruce Bloch, for all you cinema lovers out there or filmmakers. That book changed the way that I make movies. And last but certainly not least, the Harry Potter series by She Who Shall Not Be Named.
Yep.
That was going to make my list, but
I would kill you.
But also, she's just upset me too much recently. But it makes the honorable mentions list because it was the book series that got me to realize that reading is fun. That was the book series for me, so it had to be mentioned in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, that's fair.
Fair.
Got me into reading. So
I love that series too, but fuck that lady.
And with that being said, moving on to number 5, Dallas, what you got?
Yes, as stated, I don't be reading. I got other things to do.
Yeah.
So when I was younger, I used to read a lot. So basically, my whole list is series that got me into reading the way that the magic books did for a lot of.
We can call it Harry Potter. That is what it is. I got too many magic books on here for us to not call it by its name.
Oh, that's fair. That would get very confusing. Pretty sure this one has magic too. Also, some of them I don't really remember because it's been a minute. Number 5. So remember, these are all series for me, not individual books.
Cool.
In case that matters. Number 5 is Artemis Fowl
Ooh.
by Owen
Never
Kofer.
finished that.
I didn't either. I read the first 3.
There are part of number.
And then
Those are
he
good.
kept writing them.
Yeah, aren't there like
I think I read. They're like
No,
7.
but there's a lot.
Too many. for
7 or
me.
8, I think. Because 5 was the
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read,
demon one,
3.
and then I think there were like 2 more after that.
and then there's like the Fowl twins or something.
Oh,
Weird
yeah, I
fun
think
fact
they
about
get their
me,
own-
I have read like book 2, book 3, and like book 5 or something like that.
What?
I've read random
Girl,
books in
what?
that series, and they are all very good, but I've never read any of them in order
Why didn't you read the first one?
because I didn't have it.
What?
You could
it's
have
like
asked
back in the
people.
day
Where'd you
when
get
you were
the
a
second
kid
one?
and like
the
you could
first
just
one.
do anything.
Well, it was before I met. I want to say it was
that's
before I
fair.
met you.
That's fair.
Yeah, we were young. I read them in middle school.
Well, you knew
I
me
read
in
1,
middle
2, 3.
school,
I was
but
like,
not
ooh,
very
that's
well,
really good.
so I guess that
But
would.
yeah, we weren't like
Yeah.
I wouldn't say we were friends in
Yeah,
middle school.
yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, I read the first 3 and then I stopped. And then apparently they just kept coming out and I did not know.
But they were good.
Yeah,
And the first 3 are very good.
I agree. I don't remember them a lot, but from what I remember, they're good.
It'd be like that when you talk about books from your childhood. You'd
first
be
one
like, I
is-
remember loving
Pretty much
this.
takes place at his house. The second one is the Arctic incident where he's going after his dad, and the
Mhm.
third one
I've read that one.
is the one
Eternity
where
Code?
yeah,
I read that
he's
one.
like
Yeah.
trying to hack into a businessman's place for something. I can't remember what. Some kind of corporate executive.
Yeah, eat
something.
the rich. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, eat the rich.
I think
Isn't Artemis rich?
I think I also
Yes.
read the Opal Deception. So I read 2, 3, and 4.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't even know about that one. But yeah, shout out to Owen Kofer and shout out to the internet for letting me research how to say that name.
There seems to be 8 books in the first cycle and 3 books in the second one.
Oh, good for him.
So like 11.
Keeping it
That's
pushing.
so many books.
We say that until we get to one of my later books down the line.
Yeah.
All right.
That's fair.
So, Gabby, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is a book called Funny You Should Ask by Elisa Sussman. I love Chris Evans. He's my
Yes,
number
you
1. And in 2011, there was this like in the Chris Evans like fandom, fangirl, like mythology, there is this article that came out where Chris Evans, it was like the fangirl's dream. Like the interviewer came in and he was like flirting with her. He was like holding her hand. He kept inviting her to events that were like out of the realm of the article she was writing. Like she was only supposed to meet him for like drinks and talk to him for 2 hours. And it turned into, hey, I'm leaving soon. Do you want to come to my goodbye party at this club? And then from the club, he was like, hey, do you want to come to my house? And then she went to his house with him for like the after party. And then he was like, oh, you should come to my new movie's premiere. So then like it's like the dream. So then somebody, Elisa Sussman specifically, she took the concept of that article and she turned it into a romance novel.
Of course.
And I thought it was going to be all fluff, but it was actually very, very good. And there was like this undercurrent of sort of melancholy through it. And it was just, I expected fluff and fanfic. And what I got was like a very, very good, well-written book and a lovely story. And so that's why it's in my top 5. All of these books I went in, like, with the exception of one, of expecting them to be sort of like fluffy and like ridiculous, and they ended up being like catching me by surprise, and that's why they made the list. So yeah, Funny You Should Ask. I also highly recommend that Chris Evans article. It was his profile on GQ in 2011, and it is the fangirl's dream. Like, take Chris Evans out and put whatever famous man you want in there, and and you're like, oh my god, this is even better because it's real life. Like, it actually happened to this woman, and oh my god, the dream.
That's a wild time.
Yep. Also, Chris Evans was apparently, before he got married, like wild and would just keep inviting women to things.
The Avengers cast used to talk about how he was the one who wouldn't settle down.
It was true. And I get it now. Pretty girls would just follow him.
Okay.
Onward.
Yep. Cass, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is Sorcerer of the Wild Deeps by Kaya Shanti Wilson. And it is notable as the first, like, sort of medieval fantasy period piece that I've ever read that has the word nigga in it. And that was
What?
a profound experience. Like within 10
that sounds
pages,
amazing.
they're talking about like, yo, this nigga wants to get his dick wet. And I was like, oh, this is good. This is good.
Oh, the baby
Yeah,
thought that was
the
hilarious.
baby thought it was amazing.
I would
though the baby
highly
cannot hear you.
recommend Kai Ashanti Wilson's books because he writes, they have like modern dialogue and it's so good. It's got all the fantasy shit that you would want. Like there's a whole story about tracking some sort of creature in a jungle, but it's a bunch of niggas. And it's great.
Niggas make everything better.
They do. And I have
know if
not
they heard
seen
you.
them. And they don't show up in like medieval fantasy because even if you got black people, they have to talk all fancy like. And this was so refreshing and a reminder that you can be anachronistic if it's fun. And that book
Yeah,
is just
love that.
so
I
much
wish
fun to read.
People would understand that. I wish people in like the fantasy fandom would understand that we can have anachronistic fun. It's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be medieval. Let's just have a good time.
It just sucks because like I see it and I'm like, oh shit, you can put niggas in fantasy? All right, let's go. Can we get more of that?
Let's do it.
please?
Hopefully, maybe one day.
We can hope.
All right. So my number 5 is a book called Sword of the White Rose by J. Ardian Lee. The novel is set in the Highlands of Scotland in the year 1745, just prior to the final Jacobite uprising. Dylan Matheson, Laird of Kioram and time traveler, dies of old age, leaving the welfare of his lands and people in the hands of his son Kieran, as well as the guidance and help of the fairy Shannon. Only she knows the dreadful truth that the uprising will fail. Her pleas to pursue the course of peace that his father chose fall on deaf ears as Kieran is eager to join the fight against the English despite his unexpected love for the daughter of the local British commander, Leah Hadley.
Sounds involved.
It's great. Funny story about this book. I read it for the first time when I was 13 years old, and I should not have.
Oh my God.
That's always fun.
Demi.
So what happened was I was at a train station with my grandmother, and we stopped at the bookstore in the train station because we had some time before our bus or whatever was coming. So I'm looking around, and I see this cool cover with a dude in a kilt with a sword running across like a battlefield. He had really long hair. He's a very attractive dude. And there are white roses on the cover. And I go, yo, that looks dope. And then I read the synopsis and I'm like, yo, time traveling, fairies, war. This sounds like my type of thing. Let's do it. And my grandmother agreed that she would buy me a book. So she bought me that one.
Oh my God.
It took me until 130 something pages into the book for me to realize what kind of book this was. And I was like, oh.
Was it a romance novel?
Yes.
Yes.
Slow burn.
Yes.
That's usually how long they take to get that way.
100. Goodness gracious.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Fourth Wing takes a minute. Anyway.
Yeah.
Talk
Yeah.
about
If
emotional
they're
edge.
well written, if they're like straight smut,
yeah.
it's like chapter 2.
This was
Sometimes
not
the
the
That's
first
what I'm
page.
talking about. Boom. Page 7.
Sometimes
Let's go.
the first page.
So Kieran does get a hand job early on in the book, but not from her. It's from a different woman.
That don't count.
But yeah, like,
What do you mean that doesn't? That's
like
Because
I
that
need-
scene's
I
probably
need
not
to
as
take a moment.
descriptive as
it's
it is
not.
with the woman.
See, now to be fair, it was vague enough that as a 13-year-old, I didn't know what was happening.
I just like, I
Yeah,
don't
it probably
know
wasn't as
if
descriptive.
this informs who you are now or if it contradicts. Because you're the type of person, you don't really like watch porn or seek out erotica in that regard. And yet at 13,
It was an accident. So,
Yeah.
anyway, one of the things that I loved about this book was like obviously the romance. I loved Kieran and Leah's love story. I like could at the age that we were at, I could imagine in my head Keira Knightley playing Leah. I was like, yes, she'd be perfect for this. It'd be great. Oh my goodness, especially because Keira Knightley is known for her period pieces. But I loved the romance aspect of it. Time traveling is not a big thing in the story. It's more like, hey, dude, because this is the 4th book of a series that I have never fully read. I've only read this book.
But it must have been real good if that was like
It was
where you started and
It's
ended.
pretty standalone because all the first 3 books are about his father. There's not really much of a time travel thing except, hey, your dad time traveled here and he didn't want you to be involved in this war.
Right.
Because he knew how the war was going to end because he's not from this time.
It's giving Outlander.
Yeah, from what I understand now. I didn't know anything about Outlander back then. Or if Outlander was even a thing back then. I don't know.
Oh, it was. It was like the first, like if there's a lot of like Scottish time travel damsel, and it started with Outlander.
Hey guys, this is my Outlander, and I love every moment of it. People get skinned. There's a moment of separation between them where they like are separated and apart and miss each other so badly, and like, oh, it was wonderful.
You said people get skinned?
It's a war. People get skinned.
It's just weird, like
Okay, no,
the
that's not
juxtaposition of things you're
you don't
listing.
just casually go, it's a war. People get
This is what,
skinned.
like, I love it. People
There
get
are many
skinned.
ways for
Also
wars to
love,
happen that
like,
don't
This
involve
feels like something
skinning.
that would happen in the 1700s.
Yeah, like what I'm saying is there's romance, but there's violence and there's
Yeah,
action and there's
definitely.
fantasy and there's all sorts of stuff. There's everything you could want in this book is here. I love like how Kieran is so protective of his family. Like his sister is in an abusive relationship with her husband, and every time her husband hits her, or every time Kieran sees that his sister is injured, he immediately goes looking for that dude and it's just like, yo, what did I tell you about hitting my sister? I told you next time you do it, I'm gonna kill you. And, like, basically, yeah. It's great. It's a great book. I had such a great time reading it at that age. And you know what? Usually I'm like, I don't really like enemies to lovers. I love it here. Like, this is one of those books that I absolutely adore, the enemies to lovers, probably because Kieran doesn't spend so much time trying to kill Leah. I don't think he ever tries to kill Leah. I think it's just like, you're literally on the opposite side of the war because your dad is a commander on the opposite end of the war. And so I automatically don't like you because of that. But I keep I'm falling in love with you regardless. So
I don't know if it was on mic, but last time you were here, you said the phrase, I don't normally like enemies to lovers, but and
I did say that last time.
Was that on the podcast?
Yeah, episode? It was. It was in the tag.
It's just so funny. Like, how many times?
There are several exceptions to the rule because
There are always
typically
exceptions to the
I
rule.
feel like contemporary enemies to romance I don't really vibe with most of the time because it typically consists of a man trying to kill a woman for a good period of time.
Contemporary?
Yeah, that
Yes.
feels more.
That feels more
Contemporary?
like
I'm sorry, Raylo?
Raylo's not contemporary.
I mean,
No, I'm talking about if it's made today, not.
Oh,
That takes
okay,
place.
okay. I was like, that's Star Wars.
No.
I thought you meant like a rom com
No,
with like an author and a.
Motherfucker
No,
Raylo.
I mean-
Also, he wasn't really trying to kill her.
The lies and slander that
He was
just
like-
came out of her
Do
mouth.
not-
We're not
We're
going
not gonna get that off,
That's
doing that
wrong.
today.
You don't need to bust
We're
out
talking about books
PowerPoint.
today. We're talking about
Hey, you were there for that PowerPoint. It was very good.
Okay.
It was a good
Anyway,
PowerPoint. Raylo is still
so-
trash.
There we go.
Raylo's not trash.
It is.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on.
Anyway, but my point is, like, if it's most enemies to lovers that are written nowadays, I don't really vibe with because I am not a fan of like watching somebody try and kill somebody
Like
else.
Zuko and Katara.
That's different.
Yeah, Zutara.
Sure, that's
Zutara
different.
for life.
Genocide doesn't count.
Wait, no. I told
So,
you.
are
I
we-
have exceptions.
I'm sorry, but
That's
I'm
what it is.
forgetting the end of season 1 where he wants her dead. That fight rocks, but he's like, yo, I'm gonna
See,
kill you.
It's just funny
we don't
because
have time to really
the
drive.
reason you gave was I don't like it contemporary because it's usually a dude trying to kill a woman for a long
But
time.
also,
there are
But
exceptions
that's
to the
your
rule.
exception.
But usually what happens is we don't have a moment at any point where the person trying to kill the other person apologizes for their behavior and then actually acts upon that apology by changing as a person.
I just
They're just like,
when you
they just
okay,
like,
but
you know.
like the
Yep.
question I would have is, did you ship Zutara starting like the second half of season 3 when he apologizes, or were you shipping it before then? Because that apology comes pretty late.
No.
Nah, she was shipping it when they were in that underground.
Because at the end of season 2 he apologizes
Yeah.
and I'm like, cool, and then he
yet
regresses and I'm like, oh, come
exactly.
on,
And I
dude.
was like, I was about to say there was regression there.
And then he regresses, and I'm like, dude, come on, what are you doing? Why are we making these decisions? These are bad choices. And then in season 3, it's like, dude, you can't. What are you doing? And then he does it again, and I'm like, okay, but you mean it this time.
There
Cool.
has to be a failed proposal in there. Hashtag Pride and Prejudice.
That's true. She's making points there. That's fair. I do know my Pride and Prejudice.
Oh, the baby didn't like that.
I don't know. I think that's the baby telling us it's time for us to move on to number 4. Dallas, what's your number 4?
Number 4. It's The Hunger Games by Suzanne
skip.
Collins. Oh, we got to skip.
Ooh, we got to skip.
Look
I
at
didn't think
that.
that was going to happen this time. That's
Look.
amazing.
I knew at least one of us was going to get a skip in here. And I think I'm probably going to be the one skipping.
surprised that anybody got a skip, but hey, good for us. Look at
Yeah, me too, because we have such
I mean, I
different
figured
goals.
maybe
because I
mine
know-
got skipped because mine are very like
But
basic.
also, yeah, and I also know that me and Dallas are both the ones who haven't been reading a lot recently.
Fair, yeah.
So if it was going to be anything, I would be skipping somebody, picking something from our yesteryear.
Right. That makes sense.
Gabby, what's your number
Cool.
4?
So my number 4 is Pride and Prejudice by
Oh,
Jane
of course
Austen.
it is.
Oh, well,
Speaking
look
of
at
Pride and Prejudice.
See, that's why I was like, just hold on the Raylo, which is Pride and Prejudice in space. Let's move on.
No, it's not.
Saying Pride and Prejudice because, well, first of all,
Darcy never tries to kill her, so let's start there.
but he's tried to ruin her financially. Either way,
Financially.
Yeah, those are equivalent
the same.
things.
he was about to ruin her sister's reputation. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, so
Darcy doesn't deserve the slander.
normally, 19th century literature is kind of like boring to me. Duh.
Fair.
It's like basically a different language. But first of all, it was romantic. So already my entry. And then second of all, Jane Austen, like it's not really apparent from her sort of like from like the sort of stuffy, serious Jane Austen movies. But like she's actually like hilarious and sarcastic, and all of her books are a commentary on the time. So it's not just there's like medicine with your sugar, basically is what it is. It's like she's telling you, you know, isn't this bullshit? Aren't these people silly? Like, isn't this family ridiculous?
Yes.
But also here's a love story at the same time. And everybody at the end has it all. You know, they have their rich husband. They get to live their life the way that they want to, and their family's taken care of, and everyone's happy, la, la, la. But also before that, let me just comment on how ridiculous society is. And I'm never getting married because fuck that. People suck. And like and she's sarcastic and she's hilarious, and it's a voice that's often missing from Jane Austen movies. The exception is Emma, that came out in 2020. They got it. They totally got it. You got your love story, and you got your social commentary, and you got sort of like the ridiculous of the characters in there as well. They did a really good job with like kind of capturing Jane Austen's voice. But Pride and Prejudice was just like, wow, this is normally I would be bored, but this is really great, and I'm gonna keep reading her books because they're amazing.
I have seen many adaptations of Pride and Prejudice because I'm a simp. My favorite one will always be Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which is silly but also romantic and has action.
That one's a lot of fun.
Zombies, like niggas, make things better if you add them to an old-time story.
Cass, give you number 4.
Okay, so Demi, maybe you can help me with this one, because I was looking for a name for this series, and I don't know if there is one, because I want to say the Six of Crows books. But Six of Crows is one of them.
I think that is...
Crooked Kingdom is one of them.
Oh, is that not the...
But I don't think they have a series name. I think they're just considered part of the Grishaverse. But I am making a distinction, because I find them way more interesting than Alina's story. I don't know. Anyway.
That's fair.
The Six of
No, it's considered the Six of Crows duology.
Okay, then that. The Six of Crows duology. Those books are... Like, the main 3 books with Alina and the Grishaverse are cool, but from the jump, Six of Crows, like, it's a heist book. It's a magical heist. Like, that is just already super interesting.
Yep.
The characters are all really compelling. Oh, there's an enemies to lovers in that. Wow.
There is. I love Six of Crows. It's so good.
That's
We're having a day, guys.
I hate enemies to lovers, but I like that ship.
Same.
See, there's always the exception.
There's the exception always, because somebody's going to write a good version of it. Somebody.
To be fair,
somebody's going to get you.
Enemies to lovers happens really fast. In terms of like timeline of when we see them, it's like we're on a ship and now we're in love. Bam. Anyway.
Oh, you're talking about those. Yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't figure out what characters you were talking about. I didn't realize that they were involved in that novel though, because I haven't read the novels. I just
the plot line that they're setting up at the end of the 2nd season of Shadow and Bone, where they're going to break into the Ice Court to get Matthias, is an altered version of the first book. The first book's plot is we're breaking into the Ice Court to get something else. Yeah, those books are just like, they're so fun, and like Fantasy Heist is awesome, and the characters are super like interesting and distinct. It's just really good, like, young adult fantasy that I would highly recommend. It's also nice because I think it's smaller scale, which sometimes I prefer. It's not, oh God, the world is going to end if we don't do this. It's like, oh, this could be a problem, but the world will be okay. And sometimes you need that, you know?
Yeah. It's low stakes. It's fun.
Exactly.
My big ship is in Six of Crows, and it's the enemies to lover. Of course it is.
Oh, I was going to say, is it?
Yeah.
It's not in
It's the Grisha and the what's his face?
Yeah.
Matthias
the
and
witch
Nina.
hunter.
They're a really good ship.
Yeah. Oh my God. So good.
Yeah.
Oh, I ship it.
My mind automatically goes to Inej and Kaz.
Yeah, which I wouldn't say is enemies to lovers. I would say is more like...
It's not. No. But I was saying like ship-wise, if I'm choosing a ship, it's Kaz and Inej for me.
You know, that would work for Gaby, actually, because of the whole can't touch thing. She'd love that.
Oh
my God,
so
takes
good.
off the gloves. And
it works for me.
Oh, work for what?
Kaz and Inej.
Like the germaphobe moment?
They're not touching. And
it's too much. It's
so
such
good.
a good slow burn.
It's so good.
Sorry.
Anyway.
The romance is hitting today, guys.
I love romance. I'm so sorry.
No, you're not.
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
And you don't have
I
to
love
pay.
love. Woo.
Yeah.
We need more romance in our media nowadays. All right, so my number 4. We've been talking a lot about enemies to lovers, and this might be my favorite one. So the book that kicked Harry Potter off my list.
The baby is so like, what is it?
I'm ready to yell at you if I know what this is.
Fourth Wing by Rebecca
Girl,
Yarros.
you need to love yourself. You do not love yourself. You need to love yourself and
I
stop
do love
shipping that.
myself.
It's trash. He's trash.
Wait, Zayden?
Yes. Oh my God.
Leave
Oh
Zayden
my
out
God.
of this.
Listen.
Leave Zayden
No,
alone.
I'm not going to leave him out of this.
Hold on. Let me give my intro. Let me give my intro to the book.
Let her give her intro and then fight her. The girls are fighting.
Give me the intro to the... Enter the brutal world of Baskaev War College, where there is only one rule: graduate or die. 20-year-old Violet Sorrengail expected to live a quiet life among books and history as a scribe, but the commanding general, her toughest Talon's mother, has ordered her to join the hundreds of candidates striving to become the elite of Navarre, Dragon Riders. If the fire-breathing beasts don't kill her, one of her fellow riders just might. So Fourth Wing is the first book of the Empyrean series. I am currently reading Iron Flame. The next 3 books of the series, I think, are called The Things We Leave Unfinished, Great and Precious Things, and The Last Letter. Those ones haven't been released yet, seeing as Iron Flame just came out last week. I freaking love this book. I love Fourth Wing. And Fourth Wing makes my list because I haven't been this excited about reading something in 10 years.
Wow.
Wow.
I went through like a reading phase in like 2013 and then stopped. And then now we're back in 2023 and here's this book and I'm just like, I'm obsessed. I need to know what's going to happen. I love these characters. My friend bought me this book for my birthday. She had been trying to get me to read it. Like she kept telling me about it and was like, oh, you need to read it. You need to read it. And I was like, you know me about books. I'm like, yeah, I'll get to it maybe, whatever. And so
You are to books what I am to TV shows.
yeah,
Yes.
I am. And so she bought the book for me. It came in the day before my birthday and I was like, all right, cool. I guess I'll prioritize reading it since you really want me to read it so badly. And it got to the point where I actually like surpassed where she was in the book. I was so into reading it. I love fantasy, as we can see from everything that's going to be on this list. Basically, I think there might be one non-fantasy book on here, but I love fantasy novels. I love dragon rider type of lore and stuff. So I love How to Train Your Dragons, for instance.
Right.
But I love this more adult version of this universe. When the word fuck popped up like 3 paragraphs in, I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this. And I love Violet. I love the like representation of like having a chronic illness. Violet is a character whose bones are extremely brittle and are easy to break due to an illness that she contracted as a child. And so it makes becoming a dragon rider so much harder because it's so much easier for her to break something in the hardest school that you could possibly go to for War College. Listen, Colin, I understand that Zayden is problematic at times, but I've also read more of these books than you have. So I love my boy Zayden. I adore that man. He's had a very hard life, but also man. The moment Violet described what he looked like, when she said he is more than 4 inches over 6 feet, I was like, yo. You guys can't hear it, but Gaby just yelled, I love it, from a different room. That man, I was like, you are large, and I don't know why you're so large, but you are, and how do I meet one of you? And also just, I'm so excited about it. It recently got picked up to be developed into a TV series by Amazon and Michael B. Jordan's production company. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, I'm going to get a black Zayden. Like, because the way he was described, I was like, I'm very certain that he's black. Fan art does not depict him as such. But I'm like, this reads as he's black, guys. He's black. He's definitely black. Probably a lighter skinned black, but he's black. So I might actually get that. And I'm so excited about that so much. I love Violet and Zayden's like, this is another like enemies to lovers thing with me where I was just like, I don't typically like this, but I like you guys because he kind of, yes, he wants to kill her.
Ooh.
With good reason.
Does he actually?
Okay.
That is my question. Now, to be fair, I'm only about 160 pages into the first book, but it seemed very obvious
versus
to me
being 200 pages into the
he
second.
does not want to kill her, actually, because if he wanted to kill her, he's had so many chances. Why didn't he already do it?
Exactly. That's the thing, though. Like, I love them so much. And on top of like loving Violet and Zayden, just like those two as well, Violet is our leading character, but just loving those two as the main couple, hopefully. I also adore like her sister Mira and her best friend Rhiannon. Rhiannon might be my favorite character in the books. I love Rhiannon because she's such a good friend and she's so cool and everything. Also, Black Girl Magic, let's go.
We love it.
She's such a good leader and just such a good friend just in general from the moment her and Violet meet. Like, I like this story and I like where it's going. It's giving me all the things that I love in fantasy, in adventure stories, in rebellion, revolutionary stories. I love those sorts of things. And it hits me right in those feels that I need so badly. It's been really exciting to read a book that actually has me excited to read again.
Nice.
I was telling Dallas yesterday, I was like, I have like 8 chapters to read so I can catch up to my reading schedule that I've given myself because I skipped a day. And he was like, that sounds like a lot. And I'm like, well, it sounds like a lot, but it doesn't feel that way because like I love reading it.
Right. You're actually enjoying it.
Yeah. I read 4 chapters before I got here and was very happy because I ended off in a place where Xaden and Violet are actually like getting along and being kind of happy and content. And I was like, yes, thank you. Yes. And her and Rhiannon are... Oh, yes, I'm just so happy. I was just happy with where I'd left off, and I'm super excited to see where the rest of this book goes, as well as where the rest of this series goes. It's so much fun, and it's kind of gruesome with its violence. Like, it reminds me of like how violent the Hunger Games was, but like worse because like it's for adults.
Yeah.
And it gets spicy for those of y'all looking for the spice.
Yes.
It be spicy.
I love spice.
We love spice. It's great. It takes a while for Fourth Wing to get to the spice, but you know, when it does, it is worth it. There's some pretty good representation in the book. It's giving me all the weird fantasy stuff that I like. It's got weird names that just so happen to be Gaelic and are pronounced in ways that I never would have guessed when reading the book.
Right.
There's a love triangle, obviously, but you're going to end up hating one of the guys in it.
Oh my God.
triangle.
I'm 150
That's the one I
pages
don't
in
like.
and I need him to leave.
Already. So what's funny is
he's been in like multiple scenes, but every time he says the same thing.
Same thing. So I defended him for a long portion of the book. Well, no, not as like a good potential partner for her, but just as a person.
Okay.
And then they got to a certain point in the book where I went, oh no, you can go somewhere. You can die, actually.
Ooh.
You can get rocked. I don't care how it happens, but you can ask Emily. I for sure was like defending him. I was like, as a person, he's fine. But like as a partner for her, no, he's not good.
I want to have a conversation off mic about that type of character and why things seem to go that way with that type of character a lot.
But there are also like other characters in the book I love, like Liam. Liam's great. Imogen, Bodhi. The reason why I had it kick Harry Potter off my list is partially also because it's a book that is set in like an academic setting with separate like academic houses, I guess you could say.
That's funny.
And not written by a demon
that we know of. But yeah, because you've got dragon riders, you've got infantry, you've got scribes, and you've got healers. So, you know, it's a fun little thing. You know, we used to categorize ourselves as houses for Harry Potter. You can do the same thing, I guess, with the Empyrean
this one
series.
Is different, though, because you choose it. And you can choose your house in Harry Potter, but...
Yeah, for sure. Also, highly recommend for Gaby, because I think it just has all the things that Gaby already said that she's planning to read it.
No. I'm definitely going to read this book. I just have to get to it. It's on my reading list, but I will read this book. I already know I'm going to love it.
This is so a Gaby book.
Yes.
But also I was saying that there was good representation of chronic illness, or like chronic pain, honestly. Another thing that I find interesting for this book is that because the author comes from a military background, like her husband was in the military and I think she grew up a military brat, that it's interesting to read a fantasy book that takes place in a military college from the perspective of somebody who actually has experience within kind of that world.
Right.
Oh.
I think there's a level of understanding there that you probably wouldn't get from people who don't actually know much about the military writing about like a military college.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think that's very interesting, especially because it's a revolution book. So obviously the war college isn't necessarily
it's giving Hunger Games
the best. It's been a great time so far. So yeah, my number 4 on my list, funny enough, is Fourth Wing.
I like it. I like the serendipitousness of it.
There is a good chance that it might get higher on my list as we get further along with the series too. So it's Fourth Wing, aka possibly the Empyrean series. And that's going to take us to number 3. Dallas, what's your number 3?
Number 3. What is my number 3? Unlike the rest of y'all, well, except for Cassie, I like horror. I'm a horror fan.
Hey.
Yes.
I heard that.
Yes. Yeah.
Cass, you haven't beat the allegations.
I do not like horror.
Mm-hmm.
But you love like all of Edgar Allan Poe.
No, I don't actually. I like 2 or 3 of his stories. Most of his stories are okay.
You made it sound like you liked a lot more than that.
No, I like the way that they were done in Fall of the House of Usher more than like one of those stories I read was like I read it and I was like, oh, comparatively this is not as interesting as they did it. But anyway.
I feel you. But yeah, allegations aside, I like horror very much. sometimes you got to think about why you are the way you are. And when we were growing up, we had some gateways. We had some interesting things that they gave us as children to make sure that we were into some really creepy stuff. One of those was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Oh, no.
Ooh,
Written
that
by
thing was
Alvin
terrifying.
Schwartz, and equally as important, illustrated by Stephen Gamble.
Oh,
Stephen
see,
Gamble
Yeah.
gave us
those
all those
illustrations
creepy
are the reason I
ass.
don't
He
like
made the
horror.
book. No offense to the person that wrote the stories.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's like it was a very important pairing because Alvin Schwartz collected a bunch of classic stories and folklore and stuff like that and wrote this book. But Stephen Gamble drew things
Those
that would haunt us
illustrations.
for decades.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
my God.
Let's
Those
put it
things are
this
still
way.
freaking me out.
I actively avoided that book my entire
Ooh, girl.
life.
Dude,
Have
if
fun
anybody
editing this one.
busted it out, I'd be like, thank you. I'm walking away from
Yo,
this
same.
demon's
Oh my God.
book.
Those books were terrifying.
No, thank you.
Yes, and I love them.
Of course you did.
I just love them so much. And shout out to, I want to say his name is Andre Oradal, who
Oh,
made
yeah.
the movie a few years ago. Yeah, it was cool. The visuals were really good. But most importantly, I was like, oh, right, that book exists. So then I went and got it and started revisiting some of the creepy parts of my childhood. They're so great. So many stories.
Have you read the
Harold,
rest
the
of the
Red
books?
Spot.
There's more?
There
Oh,
are
God.
3 of them.
Oh, no.
And
Mm-mm.
I used to read them in school. So like it would be, we're reading this story from this book, reading this story from this book. So like,
Wait,
yeah,
in the classroom, there was like a collection.
that's how I found these books. Our teacher was like, yo,
No, thank you.
our teacher's like, yo, we're going to read noise.
Oh, it doesn't exist anymore, guys.
Yeah, they shut
So
it down.
just
'Cause they're like, what are you reading to our
like,
kids?
What are you guys doing?
Somebody found out and was like, nah, bro, you can't
They were
read
like, shut it down.
stories about
Shut
scarecrows
it down.
that skin
That
people.
book was definitely recommended to our classes on several occasions. I don't know if they
It's
read
great.
it in class, but it was definitely recommended to our school.
That's true. That's where I
classes.
also saw it, was in
Yeah.
elementary school.
And they had the audiobook, and the dude who did, I don't know who he was, but he was killing it.
No, thank you.
Fantastic.
That sounds horrifying.
But yeah, like Demi's book from earlier, someone gets skinned in this book.
For different reasons, I assume.
Today's theme is
Today's thing is
Enemies to lovers and getting
Wait,
skinned.
hold on.
potato skins out of people.
I don't know. I probably have a series where someone gets skinned. I'd have to revisit it anyway.
Weird how often that happened.
Isn't it?
If I had a nickel, I'd have 2 nickels.
but weird that it happened so
Weird that it happened twice, right? Yeah, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I love it. It's creepy. I'm into creepy stuff today, as is an entire generation, because Stephen Gamble decided he wanted to scare children forever.
Not me.
He was right. And he did.
Wouldn't let that happen to me, though.
What happened to me, though?
I also, I haven't read any of the stories because the cover itself, I was like, no. Absolutely
Because
not.
then when I close the book, now I got to look at
I
it.
will
Yeah,
say for
exactly.
those
It's the
books,
perfect way to like vet it.
They're very. See, that's the thing. Yes. Like it's, people
Yeah.
say don't judge a book by its cover, but those books, they knew what they were doing. They
No.
wanted you to know
Definitely
what they
That's
judge
the
them
exception
by
to the
the
rule.
cover.
Wait, hold on. Judging books by its cover is how I got number 5 on my list. So
I mean, sometimes you got to do it.
Nice.
But this is the most applicable. Please judge this book by its cover, because it weeded out everyone who wouldn't be able to handle it.
me.
Because if you look at that picture and you're like, no,
No,
and
thank
nothing
you.
inside there is for you.
Yeah, and nothing inside there is for me.
Exactly.
right.
So yeah, I love it. That's my number 3.
Gabby, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is an enemies to lovers contemporary story.
Of course it is.
But,
But it is actually like written in contemporary time. So it's basically
It's a modern.
yeah, it is a modern story. It is called The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. And
I've heard of this one.
It's great, and a movie came out recently, I think in 2021. Yeah. So really quick, Lucy Hutton works at a publishing house, and the publishing house recently merged with another publishing house, and hers is, think of like, tweed jackets, like elbow patches, like I love the written word kind of a place.
Fun.
And then the people they merge with are very much like, books are units. We got to sell. And they kind of seem really soulless.
Right.
And like, she's like bright, sunshiny, like dresses like an adorable librarian. And the guy that like, she is like her rival, he dresses like he works in finance on Wall Street. Like he just looks like, a suit. And they work across the room from each other. They're both the assistants to the CEO, and they're low key at this point running the company, like low key, because the CEOs are old and they're tired, and these guys do almost all of their work. And so they have like these dumb little games that they play where like, there's like the copy game where like everything that it's like a mirror game. So like everything she does, he on the other side does it too. And it's literally just shit to annoy each other. And then a promotion opportunity comes up and they sort of start spending more time together, and, you know, enemies to lovers goes on. And it's kind of sweet, and you realize that, oh, this dude is like in love with her, and he's been in love with her for a long time. He just doesn't know how to people. So like she thought he hated her, and turns out he was like, you know, her family has like the strawberry farm, and they have like this blog, and he would like read the blog just for stories about her when she was a little kid. Low key stalkery, but also adorable. Cute,
Yeah,
creepy.
okay.
Cute or creepy. And she thought, oh, he's just reading this blog, because he like pointed it out to her that he knew what the blog was. She's like, he's just doing it to fuck with me, just to get into my brain because we're like rivals. And it turns out he thought it was sweet the whole time. It's a really good book. It caught me by surprise. I thought it was going to be a lot of fluff, and it was not. It was so good. I mean, it was still fluff, but it's good fluff. Quality fluff.
Hey, everybody needs fluff in their life.
Yeah. And then a movie came out with Lucy Hale recently, and it was adorable. They made it into a Christmas movie, and it was great.
Cass, what's your number 3?
All right. Because I was thinking about it when we were talking about it earlier, going back to skinning.
Ooh.
My number 3 is
I love this so much.
A Song of Ice and Fire, which is the books that Game of Thrones are based on. And for the skinning reference, one of the banners is the flayed man. So Bruce Bolton, he's known for skinning.
See, guys,
The Boltons.
Look at us.
See, guys, aren't you glad that I mentioned skinning earlier? It's created an entire theme.
Right?
I think I'm the only one that doesn't have skinning in mind.
You got plenty of skin, but, you know.
Yeah, I do have skin. Hey.
They're hitting the skins. They're not skinning.
Yeah, Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. Them books are good. It's a little creepy sometimes when you get to the sex scenes, but other than that, like...
Yeah, it's like the deep brown purple nipples that he describes in detail.
It's the description, and it's just like, I don't need all of that,
it's
George.
Like, this is written by a man.
Maybe I've never read smut written by a man.
I don't recommend it.
Well, then I picture, like, man looks like Santa, and it's just like,
Does a little bit.
I don't recommend
it's a choice, but, like, regardless, those books slap. They're so good, and I think the show had a lot of high points. It had a lot of low points. The books, you know, I just feel like you have more time. You have more insight into the characters.
Yeah.
The Red Wedding is good. The Red Wedding is better when you're in Kat's mind as it's happening. Like, it's stuff like that,
fuck.
right? That it's like because every chapter is a different perspective, and so you're in that person's head.
Yeah.
And so you get a lot more of like her relationship with John is a lot deeper because you are in her head and hearing what she thinks about him, and like, yeah, it's just, the man is very, very good at writing. Those books are so good, and they're so complicated, and I get why it's taking him a million years to finish the series, because there's so many moving parts.
Yeah.
And maybe he'll finish the series, and maybe he won't, and I hope he does, but he may die.
I hope so too.
But
yeah, it's true. He's not a young man.
I just like, it's medieval fantasy, like epic fantasy at its core, and it's very, very good. If you like the show Game of Thrones, it's that, but more, in a good way.
And better. So much better.
All right, so my number 3 is The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Gang. So this series consists of The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, Mockingjay, and The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. The first 3 books that I mentioned are set in a dystopian world where children aged 12 through 18 are sent to compete in a televised battle royale to the death. The trilogy follows Katniss Everdeen, who must survive the Hunger Games and an impending revolution as tensions in the districts and capital rise to a fever pitch. And then for The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is about to come out in theaters as a movie, years before he becomes the tyrannical president of Panem, 18-year-old Coriolanus Snow sees a chance to change his fortunes when he mentors Lucy Gray Baird, the female tribute from District 12 during the 10th annual Hunger Games.
Wild. Also, that added that just knowing the kind of basic background of Snow and Baird, then Katniss freaking Snow out makes way more sense.
It so does. So yeah, that's the thing. So first off, I read the Hunger Games series, I think, we were like in high school when these books came out.
Yeah.
And I read them probably a little later than most people did, but I did read them while in high school. Immediately, it's like they became some of my favorite books. I just love the storyline. I like what Suzanne Collins has created with this world, this dystopia of America. It's one of those books that I read and I'm like, I would not want to live in this world.
No.
Because it's so well thought out. It's terrible. It's an awful, awful place would never want to live there.
That's the thing, is that like Suzanne Collins, I mean, she was not the first to do it, but she was the one who did it so successfully that then you had a bunch of copycats. But like,
Yes.
none of them touching her. The way she did it was so good.
Yeah, and I think also one of the things that really spoke to me about the Hunger Games was that you spend years reading all these heroes' journeys where these heroes are super like, I'm going to save the world, or I need to, this is the right thing to do. I must do the right thing. Mm-hmm. And I always related more to Katniss as a hero because I always felt like, I don't think I have the courage or the bravery to be the hero that says, yeah, it's the right thing to do. Like, it's not easy to do the right thing. It's scary to do the right thing sometimes. And I feel like as much as I would love to be the earnest hero, I don't think I would be that person. I think I would be like more like Katniss, who is very reluctant to be the hero in this story. She does the things that she does out of mostly self-preservation, but also out of preservation of her family and people she cares about, not so much out of preserving or trying to save people. She's not in this revolution for the sake of the revolution. She's in this revolution because she wants to save the people that she loves.
Yeah.
It's not about the whole nation for her.
Yeah. That's why her story's so tragic.
Yeah. And I always felt like I related more to Katniss as a hero because I was like, that would probably be more like what I would behave like, less so than other hero stories. Mm-hmm. Just like her demeanor as well. Like, she's not your typical, like, I feel like when people write female heroes, there is a certain level of like niceness to them to make them likable. And Katniss, I mean, even the books say that she is an unlikable hero.
She very much is.
That's just who she is as a person. And when they try to frame her out to be the hero of Panem in Mockingjay, they're like, it's not working. She doesn't have the charm and she doesn't have the niceness to be the hero. Yeah. And it's just like, yeah, but she's what you got to work with. So
she's also, she's like out to survive more than anything. Yeah, she's like, I'm not here for the revolution. I'm just trying to live, dude.
Yeah, I accidentally ended up in this situation through my own self-preservation, and now I'm going to continue my self-preservation and get through this. But then we have, on the opposite end of things, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is about President Snow when he was a teenager. And I found that book to be extremely interesting, not only because of the layers that it adds to Snow coming across a young female tribute from District 12 giving him crap, but just the way that Suzanne Collins writes choreo, it's such a good balancing act, which I wasn't sure if she was going to be able to pull off. I remember being very nervous about the fact that she was writing a story about choreo because it's like, well, are you making him sympathetic? Why would you write a book about him? But he's like, there are moments where he is sympathetic and like you understand, but I also think that she still writes him in such a way that's like manipulative. Mm-hmm. Like, you understand why he's out to do in everything in his power to become something more than what he is. And you get it. It's like, you come from a horrible, horrible background, a horrible, horrible place. Of course you need to get out of this. Like, you're coming out of poverty. Like, you do whatever you can, whatever's necessary. But there are some times where he'll do things that can, from the external, from the outside, can look like, oh, you're doing a good thing. But then when you read what his actual motivations are behind it, it's like, no, you're a manipulator. Like, but it's always kind of like, this could be seen as manipulative, but maybe it's not manipulative. That's always constantly the line that he's walking. And I think it's really well done. I love Lucy Gray Baird. She's fantastic. Rachel Zegler said in a interview recently for the movie that
Lucy Gray is a performer forced to fight, while Katniss is a fighter forced to perform.
So they are like the inverse of one another. And I really love that about Lucy Gray Baird. And she's just such an interesting character in what she brings out of choreo. It's very interesting. The relationship is so fascinating. And then there's also I love the little background history that they give us on how the games came to be, the games that we know so well. There are rules that we're introduced to in the book that are set up in that moment that we know so well. And it's like, here's the first time we're ever going to put them into play. And then you find out why they do certain things or why they don't do certain things that they were doing in this book later on down the line.
The book, what perspective is it from? Is it from Coriolanus' perspective?
Is it from Corio's perspective?
I want to say it's more like, not third person.
Is it third person limited?
I think it's third person limited. I'm not 100% sure.
I can't remember either, but I know that it's like predominantly we get a lot more of Corio's thoughts than we get of anybody else's. Mm-hmm. There's so much about these books that I like. I remember being one of the few people who really liked Mockingjay in high school. because I liked that Mockingjay was all about propaganda, and I thought that it had a really interesting understanding of propaganda, despite the fact that I was 17 years old. I was like, yeah, this is how media propaganda works. Of course, I get it. I understand.
I know.
I understand it. I get it. I understand what she's trying to say with this book, but everybody else seemed to just want more Hunger Games stuff. And I was like, no, but that's the point. That's the point, guys. It's all media manipulation. I get it.
Oh my God.
I loved that about that book.
Fake news.
Fake news before fake news.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then yeah, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is just it's very well done, and it's better than what I thought it was going to be. I should have had more faith in Suzanne Collins after reading the original trilogy. My bad. I knew what you was about. I wasn't on my due diligence. My bad.
Sometimes we think that like, oh, that's all that they can do. It's just their one note, and turns out no.
It wasn't even that I had faith. I had lacked faith in her talent as a writer. It was more that I lacked faith in like the current age that we're in, where we like to do like sympathetic villains, and it's just like you can't.
I understand.
I was like, don't make me sympathize with that man.
Yeah, I that's why I didn't read it. I was like, no thanks.
No, she does a really great job with it. Actually, she does a phenomenal job. There was something else about that book that I wanted to talk about, and now I don't remember. But we do get to find out why the hanging tree is written in that book.
Somebody get hanged?
Dude,
I mean,
Rachel Zegler's version of it.
God, we can't talk about that. We'll talk about that next week when we review the movie.
You're right. Oh my God, so good.
We're not talking about the movie today. We're talking about the
You're
book.
right. Books. We're here for books. We're here for books.
It's well written.
Books.
It's so well done. If you love the Hunger Games series, you will love it. Like the Hunger Games series is so well done, and then the add-on book is also very well done. So hey, read them all. They're fantastic. They're great. Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes also has a fantastic villain in Dr. Gall, who is an eccentric scientist, and oh my gosh, she's wonderful, and I cannot wait to see Viola Davis play her.
Ugh.
Number
Viola
2.
Davis looks super cool in that trailer.
Yeah, terrifying.
And that takes us to number 2.
But
Dallas, number 2.
Crazy left. This is a duology that a lot of people don't know is a duology and just think it's a book. Holes and Small Steps by Louis Sachar.
There's 2 books.
You had us read Small Steps.
Yeah.
So now I've also read both of them.
I love that book. I love Holes. Weird sentence. I love the book called Holes. I read it when I was...
Dallas.
You can't just be saying you love holes into a microphone on Al Gore's internet.
Yeah, we'll just take it out of context and make something out of it.
Exactly.
Problem is, you did just say
soundbite.
it, so
I know. It's too late. It's too late. I'm the guy who loves holes. But really good book. I remember reading it in the same school that I read Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. We had a lot of range there. But we also read it shortly before the movie came out, which was great because then we took a field trip to El Capitan, saw
wow, I'm
movie.
jealous. That sounds
fantastic. Digging up, dig it. We love the whole experience.
See,
and then like 8 years after the first book came out, Lewis was like, "I'm gonna spin the block on y'all. Y'all ain't ready. Remember Armpit? Let's do it from a black boy's perspective." And he wrote Small Steps, and Small Steps is about Armpit after they shut down that freaking prison camp they had those kids in.
yeah, that's wild.
And he goes back to Texas, which racist Texas.
Oof.
I guess they're always in Texas. I think it all takes place in Texas. Not important. Kind of important. Anyway, he's adjusting as you do after you get out of the prison system. And he has a little friend named Jenny, and she has cerebral palsy. And I didn't know what that was when I read it. Their relationship is super sweet because he is this gentle giant and she is this tiny, fragile child. He takes care of her.
Oh.
And then...
Please tell me she doesn't die.
No, it's not that kind of book.
Oh, thank God.
Were you not in the book club when we read this?
I don't think I was there for that part.
Yeah.
No.
It was adorable.
Yeah, it's adorable. It's an adorable book. You would like it because I forgot he like has a budding romance with a pop star. It's very...
I love it.
Gabby's books.
It's very much the book that you described earlier,
right?
But for kids.
Aww.
Yeah, and like replace Chris Evans with this fictional pop star, and it's just like, how did that happen? It's a book. Don't worry about it.
That's like the show Superstar, but go on.
Also, we found out how X-Ray got sent to Camp Green Lake, which was hilarious to me.
Oh yeah,
he was selling bags of oregano to people and telling them it was weed.
Oh, that's how he got sent there? That's a bullshit. That's not illegal.
Yeah, I was like, is there a crime on the books for that?
That feels racist. That feels like they just need to fill a quota.
I mean, yeah, a lot of the book is, that feels racist. Great books, both of them. I still want a Small Steps movie. Louis Sachar, make it happen. I know that you don't really have control of that, but somebody do it. I need that. Also, I want another song like we had Dig It, because that song slaps.
That song is amazing.
So fire.
There was no reason for that song to be that good.
There's no reason for me to still know the lyrics to some of that song.
I still know all the words to that song.
Oh, a Disney posse cut. We love it. But yeah, Holes. We love holes. That's my number 2.
Gabby, what's your number 2?
Yes, my number 2, A Rogue of One's Own by Evie Dunmore. So I thought these books were going to be just smut. Or I thought it was going to be like a slow burn and it was going to be like whatever.
Explain so much.
But no. So A Rogue of One's Own is the second book in a trilogy. I mentioned Bringing Down the Duke and Portrait of a Scotsman. A Rogue of One's Own is smack dab in the middle. These books they're written about a group of suffragists. So each they're like 4 best friends, suffragists. Each one gets her book. And each one falls in love. The first one is like a scholarship student and she has like no money. She has a dark past, mildly dark for the time period. And somehow this Duke is like, that's the girl for me. I'm a simp for you. Please marry me. And she's like, I have no land. I have no title. I have nothing. I'm for no one from nowhere. And you are a very powerful Duke. And if you marry me, you'd be in trouble. And he was like
I've read this somewhere.
Oh, you've read it? A lot of times. This is a very good version of this book, of that story. Anyway, that's the first one. The second one is like the lead suffragist, and she is a lady with like a title, but her family has kind of disowned her, unofficially disowned her. So she still gets to keep her sort of like the acclaim and sort of privilege that comes with her family's title. However, she doesn't get to live in their home with them. And the only reason she's kind of surviving is her great aunt left her a bunch of money and she's living off her trust fund in Oxford. And that's where she's running the suffragist chapter. And then you find out that like there's this rogue and he's introduced in the first book, which is why I bring up the first book. And he is this like second son, but he's like, you know, he got a great military career. He's super tall. He's got this red hair and he's just like gorgeous. And everybody that sees him is like, oh my God, he's gorgeous. There's even like men that stop him and go, my God, you are a very good looking dude. And he's like, I know. And he has this sort of thing where he flirts with everybody. He like screws anything that moves. Like he's just like, you know, that kind of dude. And then his brother dies. So now he's the heir. And his dad is like, you need to come home. You need to behave because you have a terrible reputation. You're dishonoring our family. And you're now the heir. And like, I hate you.
Well,
and their connection is their mothers, the main character, love interest woman, and then this dude, their mothers were best friends and he would spend summers at her house. And he was basically like a bully. You realize later it's because from the moment he saw her, he's like, oh my God, she's a fairy. She's gorgeous. Like they met because she was like out riding this gigantic stallion, like this beautiful black horse. And she comes off it and he was like reading poetry. Like he loves poetry. And he's just like laying there reading like Tennyson or something. And she jumps off this horse and he's like, oh my God, she's a fairy. Like she's a fairy queen. Oh my God. And then because he was, you know, a shitty person, he just fucked with her for her whole life. So she's like, I hate him. So it's kind of an enemies to lovers, but it's not really enemies to lovers because he has always loved her. It's just her coming to the realization that, oh my God, do I like him? Do I love him? Oh my God. And it's a very well written story. You kind of buy their whole relationship. And somehow I bought the fact that these two people were sleeping together, even though it's like the 19th century and like there's scandal or there could be scandal. They're just very well written characters. Very good story.
I feel like
Not
all
much
my
plot.
knowledge of Regency era anything comes from Gaby, Emily, and my D&D friends.
That makes sense.
That it does.
Yeah. And I didn't really talk much about plot, but that's basically the plot. It's like she's a suffragist. He is trying to figure out how to be a good heir while simultaneously not liking his dad and wanting to escape to India. And it's a really good story. I was like, the first book I read was the third one, and then the third one was so good that I was like, let me go back. But my favorite has just always been A Rogue of One's Own, just because I love in the story where the dude is just like super into the girl for like way longer than she even knows he's alive. That's like my favorite thing, which you'll notice by the last story. It's just my favorite. I love it. I love a simp. I just love it. Okay, onward.
Yeah, wait till you get to fourth wing and
Yes.
when Zayden gets to be a simp.
Ugh, I love a simp. I love
Cass,
a man that loves
what's
his
your
wife.
number 2?
All right. My number 2 is The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater, because those books are good. Basically, it's like this girl who lives in this small town in Virginia and was raised by psychics. I think,
Whoa.
like starts hanging out with these dudes, these like 4 boys, and they discover weird magic shit in their town and have to figure out what's going on with that. It's a lot of like, if you know anything about ley lines, it has a lot to do with that.
I love that ley lines are just becoming a staple of supernatural novels and stuff.
Ley
Media.
lines are like where the magic is in the... Like,
Ley lines are always in these things now, just everywhere.
oh,
Well,
It's been on Critical Role. It's been on like,
Ley
I think
lines
it
are
was in
basically,
Teen
I
Wolf
think,
at one point.
where magic runs through the ground, basically.
yes, that's what
Yeah.
I was... Because it was in one of my like fantasy romance novels that I read recently
but
called The X-Hex.
It's becoming very popular recently.
Ugh, love it. Yeah, there was ley lines in the X-Hex.
Yeah, there's a bunch of ley lines that all converge in this town, so weird shit happens, and there's a mystery of like what is going on in this town. It's so weird, and like, you know, I mean, the first chapter is like, oh my god, when she saw this guy, she knew that he was going to die, and he was so hot, but he's gonna die.
I love it.
It works.
That sounds like shit that I love.
It works.
It does,
He's not
yeah.
my
Does
favorite
sound
character. She's not my favorite character, but the romance works. But mostly just the books are so well written. There were so many moments reading those books where I had to stop and be like, God damn, I wish I could write like this. Maggie Stiefvater has a way of describing things where it's like, I never would have thought of that way to describe what's happening, but now that you've said it, it makes perfect sense. Those books are so good. The writing is incredible. And the characters are all really fun. And there was supposed to be a TV show, and then it didn't happen, and I'm sad.
Boo.
Dang.
You know?
One day.
With Catherine
Someday.
Hardwicke, though, no, we avoided.
Hey, Catherine Hardwicke is great. Catherine Hardwicke is great. Have you seen 13?
Also, this is going to be a weird shout out of context, but shout out to Maggie Stiefvater for writing, I don't know if those books, but writing books while she also had worms in her face.
What the fuck?
Learn that. Yeah.
Something like that.
I went to a
Don't
seminar
like
that
that
she
at
put
all.
on. And she was like, yeah, at one point I had worms in my face. Like, awesome.
Worms in her face?
Yes.
Let's not ask follow-up questions.
No, don't. Please don't.
That sounds horrible.
That's why we don't want to ask follow-up questions.
Yeah, I won't ask any follow-up questions.
All right,
I
guys.
will look it up on her Wikipedia page.
We're going to move on to my number 2, which is Percy Jackson and the Olympians / Heroes of Olympus by Rick Riordan. So,
Yep, classic.
yeah, classic. Okay, so this is technically 2 separate book series. Also, could be seen as 3 separate book series, depending on on your mood. So the first part of this, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, I'm going to say the first part of that. After discovering he's the son of Poseidon, Percy Jackson begins to complete remarkable tasks, fulfill predictions, and engage in combat with and for the gods with the help of Annabeth Chase, daughter of Athena, and best friend and traveling companion Grover Underwood, a satyr who is his guardian. As the threat posed by the Titans grows, he realizes that he can either contribute to the world's destruction or its preservation. That series consists of The Lightning Thief, The Sea of Monsters, The Titan's Curse, The Battle of the Labyrinth, and The Last Olympian. The latest part of the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series revolves around Percy Jackson needing to complete 3 quests from the gods in order to receive recommendations for his application for New Rome University. And that is the Chalice of the Gods and the upcoming Wrath of the Triple Goddess, which is coming next year. And then we have the Heroes of Olympus, which centers around a prophecy that predicts 7 demigods will unite to protect the world from an awakening new enemy, the Earth goddess Gaia. Demigods from both the Greek camp, Camp Half-Blood, and a newfound Roman camp, Camp Jupiter, unite to save the world from being destroyed by Gaia. And that series consists of The Lost Hero, The Son of Neptune, The Mark of Athena, The House of Hades, and The Blood of Olympus. That's so many books. I just listed
That
11
sounds like
books.
a lot, yeah.
House of Hades,
Actually,
love it.
I'm sorry, I listed 12 books just now. I've read 11 of them because one of them is not out yet.
It's wild that he's still going.
I appreciate that he's still going. I have not read the Apollo series, which is also involved in this book series as well. And he has a Nico and Apollo book that's coming out pretty soon, I think, as well. So the Percy Jackson books are just so much fun. I am somebody who loves Greek mythology. I just think reading it is so fascinating and interesting. Fun fact, Cass is the one who actually got me into this book series because the movie was getting ready to come out, and I was like, oh, these are books. I've never read them.
Yeah.
And Cass was like, they're really good. And so I was like, cool. So I started reading them.
Wild, because now you have read more of them than I have.
Yeah. And
Wow.
Cass also loaned me a number of them as I was reading them, so I wouldn't have to keep going to the library to check them out. Yeah, Rick Riordan's writing style is just something that I absolutely enjoy about this book series. I had forgotten all about that until I started rereading The Lightning Thief recently, which I put on hold so that I could read Fourth Wing, The Chalice of the Gods, and Iron Flame. But I love his writing style because Percy is just so the Percy Jackson and the Olympian books are all from first person, and Percy's just such a sarcastic character, always making jokes. He's kind of foolish. And so that's really embedded into the writing itself. His point of view is there's always so many good jokes and just like, we're not taking this seriously sort of in there. And it's great. I love that. All the characters are really fun, very interesting. And also the world that Rick Riordan has created is so vastly interesting, because it basically is, what if Greek gods were real, and what if they had demigod children in modern times? How would that work? And it's also a really good way of teaching kids about different Greek mythological stories. But all the characters are very interesting within those books. Even the gods themselves, like his portrayal of the gods as being very negligent, absent parents, is very interesting.
Ooh, I love that when they're called out for that.
Yeah, they're so negligent, and Percy calls them out on that all the time. And also we get to grow up with these kids. They start off at the age of 12, and now in Chalice of the Gods, Percy is 17, getting ready to go off to college.
Okay.
He's created this very interesting world. I dig it so much that like I would love to do my own demigod story one day, but every single time I think about it, I'm like, how do you differentiate yourself from Rick Riordan's modern day demigod world? Because it's so just like, it kind of is the quintessential version of that.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to step away from that, and it's like, how do you differentiate from that?
It's like Outlander versus like all the other Outlander copycats.
Yeah. I have an idea of how I can do it, and thank God I figured it out. But it's just like, it's so hard because what he's done is so impressive. But yeah, I love these characters so much. And then on top of that, one of the things that I also really enjoy is like, so the first 5 books of the PJO series is very like, the world is gonna end.
Oh God.
Here's a prophecy. Go off on this quest and go do the prophecy. But it's a very big, high stakes, world ending type of series. And what I really like about what Rick Riordan has done in returning to this series is that it's much lower stakes this time around. Like I said, he's doing quests in order to get college recommendations.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is like such a normal thing for a teenager to have to do, but he has to do it in like the biggest way possible. Like I have to go off and do, but the original series is like at least country spanning. Like we're constantly like traveling across the country. Heroes of Olympus is global, like it's international.
Wow.
They travel all across the globe oftentimes. But then with this series, it's all based in New York.
Okay.
And so he's really brought it down. So it's very like those books are always very character focused, but even more so now with Percy trying to go off to college and having a very specific personal goal in mind. And I thought that was very interesting. And then Heroes of Olympus is, again, another high stakes, the world might end book series. And what I love about those is it's third person limited. Every few chapters we switch to a different character's perspective.
Okay.
What I love is that at that point, Rick Riordan started really being a lot more inclusive with these books. We started getting lead characters who were Black, who were Chinese, who were Native American, who were like from all sorts of different cultures, on top of the characters that we already knew from Percy and Annabeth and Grover. And I think that I really love that evolution of Rick Riordan. Like he acknowledges like, oh, here are ways that I need to improve. And then he doesn't like talk about it. He just does it. He puts it in his books. And it's really nice. And then on top of not even just putting it in his books, with the Percy Jackson TV series coming out soon, he's cast Annabeth, a young Black girl to play Annabeth. He's cast a young Indian boy to play Grover. And these characters who are drawn as white, obviously.
Yeah.
But like in his evolution, he's like, those things don't really matter. So it's like, let's be more inclusive. And because these books were written for his son who has ADHD, and his son felt very excluded because he felt different. And so Rick Riordan said,
doesn't Percy have that?
He has ADHD. All demigods have ADHD.
Oh.
They all have ADHD and they're all dyslexic.
Oh.
And so he like, it started off as him telling these stories to his son as like bedtime stories, and then he wrote them as a series. So like kids who felt like his son, who felt like outcasts, who felt like they didn't fit in, it was like, well, no, you can be the hero too.
Oh.
And so like, I love these books. These books are great. all of them, and they stick to that same kind of like, he has a phenomenal formula, and I love it every single time. His writing style is so much fun. So yes, I could talk about these series for days, but that's why it's my number 2. Percy Jackson and the Olympians and The Heroes of Olympus by Rick Riordan. He does a phenomenal job with these, and they're kind of like, in my opinion, the quintessential demigod novels, if you ever read anything like that.
I do like the way that he does his representation.
He's very good at it.
It's not just, this dude was gay the whole time.
I mean, it kind of is he kind of does that with Nico, but the thing about Nico is, though, even though he does that with Nico, it becomes important for the rest of the story, though, and it actually adds layers to what we've seen of him.
Matters.
Yeah, and it adds layers to what we've actually seen of him previously. So like, you know, because when we first meet him, he's like 9 or 10. So like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah. But then when we meet him again at like 13 or 14, and then it's revealed that he's gay, it's like, yeah, he's been gay the whole time, but also he's had a crush on Percy the entire time, which kind of, you know, when you look back on it, it's like, oh, it definitely colors the way that he and Percy's dynamics have been, because he and Percy are kind of always at each other. Like Percy constantly wants to help him, and Nico is constantly like pushing him away. And it kind of adds to like, oh, he was jealous of Annabeth the whole time. Like that makes sense.
And this was revealed like
in the second series in Heroes of Olympus. Yeah.
Yeah. Not like I wrote all these books.
Oh, it was.
The story's over. Also, this dude's gay.
Yeah. It wasn't a she who shall not be named situation.
No. She did that with so many things.
No, he actually revealed it within the books, within the canon. Like if you're reading it, you got to deal with it.
How you should do it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my number 2, and that takes us to number 1, guys.
Number 1.
This has been number 1. Dallas, what you got for us, man?
Adventure.
So interesting that we were just talking about that. We've had some brief talks about whether or not we separate art from artist, and you know, which cases we do or don't.
Yes.
The baby says no.
The baby says it's impossible.
With that being said, maybe a little controversial to say this, but Eat a Dick Joanne, my number 1 is Goosebumps. By R.L. Stein.
Yay, the baby likes that.
I like the new show.
Same.
Hi,
she right there.
I can start.
Tell us about the Goosebumps book series.
I love Goosebumps. It was my other gateway into horror, but tamer, because R.L. Stein actually wrote these for children to read and not be
horrified,
ruined by
traumatized.
Yeah.
I bought you one.
Which one?
Pasadena.
You bought that?
Yeah, I remember.
I was just looking at that the other day.
Yeah.
Because when the show came out, other Gaby, my niece, I was showing her that I have these books, and then I took a picture of that one. So yeah, thanks for that.
You're welcome.
But yeah, there's a book called The Abominable Snowman of Pasadena. How could this not be my favorite book series?
Right?
It's just horror anthology. Kids in Mind, came out in the 90s. It checks so many boxes that fit me as a person. And then we had a TV show with arguably the best theme song of all time.
And Ryan Gosling.
Little baby Ryan Gosling with that big ass camera.
Yep.
A show that I actively avoided as a child.
Me too. I was like, I'm not watching that demon. I didn't watch that, or Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Are You Afraid of the Dark was a lot.
I
watched that once and I was like, this might be above my pay grade.
I was like, oh, your entire intention is to frighten me? No, I'm not watching this.
Yeah.
Like, no.
But Goosebumps was fun. It's very cheesy.
My cousins liked it.
Yeah. Great time. I read so many of those books back, like I said, when I was a kid, I used to actually read a lot. Just hit the library, the book fair.
Oh,
everybody remembers the book fair.
The book fair.
What Goosebumps books? I was rubbing my hands together.
Yeah.
Birdman. What Goosebumps books y'all got? Man, Stay Out of the Basement, Say Cheese and Die, The Barking Ghost. There's so many, and they're all so good. And R.L. Stein, for a bit in the 90s, was like the number 1 best-selling author in America for a while because of all these books. And he was cranking them out.
Yeah, there's so many of them.
They started in July. Like, he put out 2 books in July of 92.
Here's the thing.
Yeah, like
is he just one person?
Yeah.
That's wild. Because I thought R.L. Stein was like a fake author that like the publisher
like
was just.
Yeah.
That's wild to me because I mean, come on, the one that I just mentioned, the book series I just mentioned, has like 12 books. And on top of the other book series that are also connected to this book series, it's probably more like 17.
Right.
But they're, they release like once a year.
62.
And also there are co-writers for a couple.
62.
There are 62 of the original series. And then Tales to Give You Goosebumps adds 6 more. And then Give Yourself Goosebumps adds, looks like about 42 more. Oh, and then
that's insane.
Presents,
it's ridiculous.
which adds 19. Goosebumps Haunted
Because I already
Library,
thought-
Ariel is going
Goosebumps
crazy.
Autobiographies, Goosebumps Triple Header,
The baby is
Goosebumps
astounded.
Series 2000. That's a different one. That's 27 more.
Because I thought Rick Riordan was already prolific and that was a lot. I was like, I don't know how this man releases a book once a year. How does he do it? But that's
R.L. Stein's
ridiculous.
over here like 2 books a month, bitch.
R.L. Stein put out 62 books between 92 and 97.
That's about 12
Incredible.
books a year.
It's ridiculous.
That's 1 a month. How was he coming up with
And
all
they're
this?
good. Like, obviously, I haven't read all 62. Like, I ain't time for all that. But all the ones I've read, I really like. The Ghost Next Door is like sad. Like, it has a story. It was like, oh man, this is hitting me. And then they make dope adaptations. Some better than others. There's a new one that is better than it has any right to be. Like,
I'm going to be honest. Yeah, it's much better than it should be.
much fun. I'm having so much fun watching these 24-year-olds pretend to be teenagers.
Hey,
Yeah,
man.
they do look old. They look old. They look so old that I was like, is this gonna be scary? Like, I thought it was gonna be actually very, very frightening, and I refused to watch
What's funny
it.
is it's still like goofy Goosebumps, like creepy, but like it's so much fun.
Bro, this
And I
man,
love these
I'm
characters
just scrolling
so
down the
much.
wiki and like the Fear Street books, which Netflix adapted, there are
Right?
51 in the main series alone. And then there's so many different spin-off series.
That's so much.
RL is that dude.
Like, you should go to
It's-
his Wikipedia
it's
article
crazy.
and just look at his like list of works, and it just goes and goes and goes and goes.
And goes. That's
You
a
will
lot.
never stop going in.
Stop.
I promise you, you will never stop going. But yeah, R.L. Stein, amazing. Goosebumps. I love it. It's timeless.
She agrees with you.
Yeah. The baby's like, yeah, bro, these books are fire. They have a Halloween book called Attack of the Jack-O-Lanterns. And as goofy as that sounds, it's one of his best.
Wow.
And there's just so many. There's so many. If you like werewolves, Cassie. If you like monsters in general, Cassie.
I mean, I'll give you that one.
yeah. There's just
There's so much.
There's so much to choose from, and I don't have time to talk about all of them because, of course, I don't. There's 62 to start with. That's ridiculous.
I'm telling you, you need to look
But
at
yeah.
his
Prolific.
like list of works on Wikipedia. It is.
I'm looking at it now. It's going crazy.
That's why
But,
he never continued after 97. Just kidding. He still made like 50 more books.
And then cameoed in all the adaptations of stuff, which I love.
Which is wild.
Wait,
Also,
is
what does
he
he
in
look
the
like?
new TV show?
What does R.L. Stein look like?
He looks like an old Jewish dude with glasses.
Yeah.
Is he-
Get your baby.
Is he in the new TV show? Has he cameoed on that yet?
Yes, but it's very subtle.
Oh, where? Which episode?
Have you seen the new one?
Yeah.
When Justin Long is in the car listening to that podcast,
Yeah.
it's R.L. Stein.
Oh,
you
it's
can see on the
hilarious.
screen,
Okay.
it's him and he's talking. Great stuff, great books. I love them. They are partially responsible for why I'm into spooky stuff today and why I'm trying to get Cassie to live her other truth as a horror fan. But
It
That
took
one is
me 31 years to get
surprisingly-
to one of them, so we'll see how long it takes.
I gotta say,
I'll see you when I'm 62.
surprisingly, you got to this one first. But yeah, that's my number one.
Gabby, what's your number one?
Oh, sorry. I have to book in, start and finish my number one with Eat a Dick Joanne.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, that's my number one.
Love that. Alrighty. My number one is Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood.
I saw that coming.
Ugh, I love Ali Hazelwood books. Dude, she's my number one right now. She's my number one favorite. Like, no one writes a better romance novel than Ali Hazelwood. And I know what you're thinking. Gabby, all she does is write a romance novel about like a super tall, like, you know, broody dude and like a shorter, like...
God, she has described Fourth Wing.
That's every romance novel. And like a shorter, like super into science, and it's all in a science setting, la la la. Bitch, shut up. Like, she's writing what I want, okay? And also her next book is gonna be a vampire Omegaverse, like
No.
werewolf
Omegaverse?
moment.
Hold on.
Oh,
you took
God.
a turn.
Yeah.
You didn't say
That's a big
Omegaverse was
turn.
involved.
No.
That's for the next book that's coming out in February. That's her fourth book.
Yeah.
For
And
those,
she
of you
literally-
guys, for those of you guys out there who want to know what Omegaverse is, don't look it up.
Absolutely look it up. It's terrifying.
Find Cassie on Twitter and
Honestly,
ask her.
Like, me and a friend of mine had to inform some older friends of ours on what that was one day, and it was a wild time.
I'm a peek behind the curtain, break the fourth wall a little bit. My original example for like, oh, if so-and-so has number 5 and so-and-so has number 1 was going to be some Omegaverse.
What was it gonna be like? The werewolf.
I don't know any like
This
specific
werewolf.
ones, so I was like, I'm gonna just go with this whole guy Roger's in the crib.
Gabby, continue with the actual book that's your number one.
The actual book that's my number one is Ali Hazelwood's second book. She's most famous for her first book, The Love Hypothesis, which was originally a Raylo fanfic. Fun fact about Allie Hazelwood is she has since actually written a short story set in the Star Wars universe officially for Disney.
That's
so
dope.
I'm super proud of her. Like, yes, Allie,
She made it.
manifested it. Anyway, Love on the Brain is her second book. It's my favorite of the books that she's put out, and it's about B. Koenigswasser. She is a neuroscientist, a PhD in neuroscience, and she knows everything you need to know about like brain stimulation. And she's hired to work for NASA. They're going to make these special helmets that are going to make astronauts like way better at their jobs. Like, it's going to stimulate their brains and make them faster, sharper, stronger, etc. And she's super excited about this new job, except that she finds out that the head engineer and her co-lead is Levi Ward, the guy that hated her in grad school. Oh no. And eventually, spoilies, you find out that he was actually like super in love with her the whole time. And
What
it's
a
great.
twist.
What a twist. And it's really good. It's well written. It's
Did not see that
amazing.
coming.
The spicy scenes are spicing.
We love it.
Hey, we're here for the spice.
The love is loving. Oh, it's so good. It's amazing. It's well written. It's quirky. It's awesome. It's my favorite book right now. When I'm sad, I audio listen to it, and it makes my life happier.
Guys, for the record, Gaby is also like, she studied science. Like, science is her thing. That's why she likes if this Leah Love Interest is a scientist, she can just insert herself in there.
Yeah, I operate combustion turbines for a living.
Sorry, what is Gaby inserting herself in?
So, this story,
Hey.
The story where the woman stimulates the head.
The
or whatever.
brain.
She's, yeah.
As you do.
brain stimulation.
She's a head
Jesus
stimulator.
Christ.
You're a
Everyone
scientist.
You're ahead what now?
Stimulate that head.
Woo. Yeah, and that's my favorite book right now, ever, probably.
I mean, that's what this is for, ever.
Yeah, ever.
As of right now,
Yeah,
ever.
as of right now, ever. And these are all books I've read within the last 5 years.
That's
but
the only thing about doing this list, and is I'm
Actually-
like, what if I want to change it later on down the line?
You're
Like,
right.
I'm
We
like-
can.
I'm like, the Empyrean series could go up.
Oof. Yes. Anyway, it's amazing. I love it. I highly recommend it. Especially if you're like, I want to read Allie Hazelwood, but I'm not a Raylo. To me, I think you should read this book.
That
It's
is
amazing.
indeed me.
Yeah, you can skip the first one and totally have the second book and the third book, and it's amazing. And I love it. Mwah, chef's kiss. 10 out of 10. Allie Hazelwood is my number one. I love her. I love her so much.
Cass, what book is your number one?
Hell yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah. So, my number one is the Locked Tomb series by Tamsin Muir, because those books
I have no
are
idea what that is.
some of the best books I have ever read in my life. You may have heard of them. Gideon the Ninth, Hera the Ninth, Nona the Ninth, Electo the Ninth.
I've never heard of any of
I've
these.
never heard of any of these.
I named my cat after one of those characters, and you've never heard of them. I hate
And we had no idea
Yeah.
what you were naming the cat
You
after.
did
Yeah, Hera
not
Not Adjustments.
understand that reference.
Yeah, you should
Wow.
read those books. They're incredible.
I thought it was from a video game. I didn't think it was from
No,
a
no, no,
book.
no, no.
I thought you just made it up.
No.
I was like very impressed.
God, those books. So one of the things that I often find frustrating is when the recent trend of books being advertised by, how to say, like one of the descriptions of Gideon the Ninth is goth lesbian necromancers in space. And it's like, yes, that is true, but
That
it
sounds
is
wonderful.
also
What?
so much more than that.
I'm sure it's way more than that, but I'm saying that is a real good hook.
It's good marketing.
I'll warn you, it's an unbelievably slow burn. It kind of burns for a bit and then stops burning, and then it might be burning again right now. I'm not sure where things ended up. So if you're looking for the lesbians, you're not really going to find a ton of it. It's there, but
Boo.
you're not going to find like
It's there, though.
it's the tension. The tension is there, and there are definitely some scenes that it's like, oh, y'all want to fuck, but you're not gonna fuck yet because you can't.
Oh, damn
But you
it.
could. Oh, that series is so good. The first book is basically a murder mystery, sort of. It's a bunch of people get called to a place to basically try to become, what would I call them? Disciples, maybe? Well, no.
Oh,
No, not
acolytes?
disciples. No, it's,
Witches?
well, yeah, kind of. Because it's like, I wanted to call them disciples because they're going to become servants of God. But I don't want to call them disciples because I don't think that the disciples had magic powers, and these people do. So,
Are there
It's giving nunnery.
They're clerics.
It's giving covenant.
yes, I guess, yes, they're clerics. God needs new clerics because he has, I think, 3 left. And so he's like, yo, come here and like be in my murder house. That is, well, no, it's not a murder house. People start murdering, but come here and be in my house and solve puzzles and figure out how to become akin to a god, basically. The first book I thought was incredible. The second book is on a completely different level. because the way the second book is written is, it's one of those things where you get to a point in the book and you realize, oh shit, this changes the entire book. And now I need to go back and reread it. It's the only book I've ever liked that is written in second person because of the way it uses second person is so fucking good. Oh, Hair of the Ninth is just exceptional.
How does second person work?
It's like
God,
you
I
go
hate
down
those.
this.
You did this, and you go here, you do this.
Stop it.
I hate second person, but this book, once
It's
you
also
understand
like
why
second
it's
person's
second person,
very hard to do.
It's so hard to do, and I've never liked it because it's always felt very like invasive. But
Yes,
this book,
I don't want to be here.
when you realize why
Don't
it's
insert
doing
me
it,
in this.
like it's doing it for a very specific purpose, and when you realize why
Wow.
it's doing it, it completely recontextualizes like everything you've read, and it starts to make a hell of a lot more sense. And it's just like, but then the third book is completely different, and the main character is somebody we've never seen before, and it's like, I was reading it like, what is this? I don't understand. But then like you get how it's connected and you learn so much about God, like a lot about God, which is cool because in the first two books, he's kind of this enigmatic figure of like, hey, I'm God. And then you like figure out who he is and why he did what he did, and like the birth of necromancy. And it's just so fucking cool because he started out as just a dude on Earth, and then he became a god through random happen. I don't know how he got his powers. Anyway, Jod, he slaps. But it's just, God, the series is so good. And it's really funny too. Tamsin Muir upsets me because she will put literal memes in her writing. It gets me every time. There's a nun pizza with left beef reference. What else? There's so many different, there's a like, hi so-and-so, I'm dad joke in there. There are so many, like, you can read the books and go like, oh, that's an actual meme that you just found on the internet and you put it in your book. And I didn't know you could do that, and I hate that you did it, but it's great.
Of course you can do that.
It's, I just like, I
think Rick Riordan makes a TikTok joke in the most recent Percy Jackson book.
Oh my God.
What?
See, and that's what's great is because this universe doesn't have, like, Rick Riordan can make a TikTok reference and people in the universe know what that is. But these memes come out of nowhere and the people who are saying them don't even know what they mean. And it's just...
So it's like in Dragon Prince when Nick said, anyway, here's the Wonderwall.
Exactly. Like, they don't get that they're making that reference, but I do.
But we do.
And it's great. These books are so good. And it's the kind of series where every time I read the books, I find something new in them because there is just so much in them. They're very complicated, really, because there's so much of like, who is this person? They're not who they say they are. Is this person the same as this person? These two are the same person, but not really. These people shared a soul, kind of. These people shared a soul later because they do something, but then this person was this person, but then that one died, and so now this person has the body, but how does that work? It's so complicated and so good. I mean, like I said, I named my cat after one of the characters because that series is so good and it means so much to me, and I specifically wanted a black cat so that I could name her after Harrow Monogamous because Harrow slaps. She is the best. And my cat is, not as angry, thank God, but she's cute.
That's good.
But yeah, I would extremely highly recommend the Locked Tomb series. And if you get into it now, you're getting into it before it's over because Electo the Ninth has not come out yet.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
That takes us to me to take us out with my number one. My number one is The Castor Chronicles by Cami Garcia and Margaret Stoll. Ethan Waite thinks of Gatlin, the small southern town he's always called home, as a place where nothing ever changes until he meets the mysterious new girl, Lena Duquesne, who reveals a secret world where a curse has marked Lena's family of powerful supernaturals for generations. This series consists of 4 books: Beautiful Creatures, Beautiful Darkness, Beautiful Chaos, and Beautiful Redemption.
I knew it. I knew it was this.
It's also got a couple of spin-off novels that I have not read, which I should because those spin-off novels actually follow my favorite character in the entire series. But anyway.
Is it the one that was played by Emmy Rossum?
Yes, I love Ridley Duquesne. Ridley is fantastic. Anyway, Castor Chronicles. I love this series, and the internet has this thing called like your book boyfriend.
Yes. Oh my God.
Mine would be Ethan Waite.
Yes.
Although Zayden is working his way up. But Ethan Waite is just a wonderful boy. And he deserves all the happiness in the world.
And that movie deserved a sequel. It deserved way more.
It deserved a sequel, but I didn't know how they were going to do it because they really went off the rails on the final part of the movie.
That's fair.
The synopsis I gave did not tell you what kind of supernatural that Lena is, but Lena is a caster, which is basically a witch. However, they find witch to be a derogatory term. she does magic. The curse on her family is that I think for like 16 generations, all of the women in her family either get chosen for the light or for the dark. And so Lena is hoping to avoid being chosen for the dark. She's trying to avoid being basically assigned anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's basically what the first book is about. It's about her and Ethan trying to find a way around her being chosen for either light or dark. For other casters, what basically happens is based on your just personality, who you are as a human, you are either light or you are dark, and that is it. But all the women in her family don't have a choice. One of my favorite things about this book series is that every novel, to me, it's a different genre. So like the first book is very much kind of a standard supernatural teenage romance, but there's a little bit of a historical romance element to it because they learn a lot about history of their families in that book. The second book is a race against time novel. Ooh. The third book is an apocalyptic novel. And the fourth book is written from beyond the grave. Ooh. Which is very interesting. So I've always enjoyed the fact that every single book brought something new to the table. It also just kind of expanded the world in ways that I absolutely adored and loved. Like you find out new things with every book. This was like the era of like Twilight's supremacy. Like it was super popular. Yeah. And so when I would recommend it to people, I'd be like, it's kind of like Twilight, but it's reversed. The guy is the normal one. The girl is the supernatural. The guy is the ordinary dude who meets this supernatural being, and it completely changes his entire world, and he falls in love. And it's a much better book, much better series, and the romance isn't toxic.
Love that.
Not only is the romance not toxic, but back, young adult novels always have the love triangle. Casper Chronicles is better and superior than that. So they give you a love square. And not only do they give you a love square, you ship every side of the square. No. It's beautiful. I love it. I've never read a book where I've liked every single ship option that you gave me. So you've got like Ethan and Lena, who are like, those are like, no, they're destined. They must be together. And then you've got Ethan and Liv, and you've got Lena and John, and then you've got John and Liv. And wow. Like, I remember reading this book and being like, I love all the options that I'm being given here. I know which ones I want to be in game and the ones that will be in game, but also I don't mind the other two either. I'm having a good time reading them as we're going along.
Love square.
It's a beautiful love square. And John Breed is a beautiful, beautiful man, even though Ethan Wade is my book boyfriend.
Levi Ward is my book boyfriend.
Another thing that I think that this book gets really well done for a young adult audience is the Southern Gothic tone and atmosphere, because it is meant to be a Southern Gothic novel. They do a really good job with that and the tropes that come with it. I think the supporting characters do such a great job in their roles of, supporting our leading characters and their what they are supposed to do in the books. One of the things that I always complain about for the movie is that the character of Amma, who is played by Viola Davis, wonderfully cast, by the way, she's perfect for Amma. Nice. But the thing about that is that they combine her character with another character in the book named Marion. They completely toss Marion out of the movie. I assume that their reasoning behind it was then that Ethan would have two mother figures, and they didn't want that, so they figured that they were kind of streamlining by making them into one character. But the problem became that if you ever went further down the line in those books, Marion and Amma serve completely different purposes, because Amma is a mother figure who doesn't want Ethan involved in any of the supernatural and tries to prevent him from being involved in any of it at all times, and will do anything to protect him from it and shield him from it. Whereas Marion kind of brings him further into the supernatural world and teaches him things that he otherwise would not know, and is his connection to his actual mother through this world, as a matter of fact. And things happen to Marion and her ideologies that just are so diametrically opposed to Amma's that it was like, this would not have worked if you guys kept going on with this movie. And that's what I mean by like every character having their very specific role as a support, and then being there for a very specific reason and what they do to enhance each of these characters and help them to grow. My favorite character is Ridley Duquesne. She is Lena's older cousin because she fits my character type. She is dark, but she has a heart of gold, and she's like, cool.
Step on me, mommy.
No, but no. Maybe at that age, but now that I'm older, that's a child. She's like
in her 20s.
She's like 18, maybe.
Oh,
18, 19.
Maybe.
It's a child now. It's like she's dark and vengeful, and she's that person. Like, I like them dark and just like sassy and fiery and just that type of person. But she also deep down doesn't want to be evil. Oh. And I love that about, like, she's so, she is like, it's almost like a nature versus nurture argument where it's just like the magic has claimed that you must be dark to keep balance, but she doesn't want to be that.
Right.
And I think that's another reason why I love her character so much, is that she wants to fight against what she is supposed to be, and she just can't because it is what she has to be.
Yeah.
And there are just so many interesting relationships in this book, and the tone is interesting. Like I said, every book is basically a different genre, and I love these characters. So yeah, my number one is the Castor Chronicles, which I read those back in 2013 that was when I was in my reading obsession for 2013, 10 years ago. So we're in a new cycle now, but I do need to reread those books because I adore them. They're from the first person perspective of Ethan. You know what's crazy? I actually started rereading the Castor Chronicles recently. I started rereading Beautiful Creatures, and one of the big things in the book is that his mom just recently passed away, like a year earlier, and I was like, "Fuck! Oh, I forgot that's a thing."
The timing of that.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh no, Ethan!" And then also like, reading Iron Flame. Violet is currently going through a grieving process. She doesn't lose her mom. I'm gonna say that now. She doesn't lose her mom. She's grieving somebody else. People die in that book a lot, but like
that makes sense.
I was like, "Oh, I understand this a lot." So yeah, Castor Chronicles, that's my number one, and that is the end of our top 5.
We did it.
Oh my gosh.
We did it somehow we got through to this point.
It's been a journey.
I don't know how I'm gonna edit this in time for Tuesday, but I'm gonna try my best.
Yeah, thanks audience for your patience and for listening to all of that. Yeah, looking forward to hearing what it sounds like when Demi gets through editing it.
I'm so sorry.
Crown Digital, Brandon and Io, thank you for putting us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Demi, thanks for editing. All that editing. Thank you for putting us on YouTube. Thank you for repping for the Hunger Gang with me. That's what I decided we're calling Hunger Games fans.
Hey.
Love it.
Even though, I don't know, they probably have a fandom name, but I like Hunger Gang better.
Tributes, probably.
That makes sense.
Or districts. I don't know.
Gabby, thank you for finally showing up so we can record this episode.
Yeah.
That we decided to record 2 months ago.
I'm so sorry.
But we love it. Cassie, thank you for repping for the books that gave us the HBO Incest Power Hour.
I got you.
Sir.
What a fun way to refer to that show. Audience, what are your favorite books? Are you like my co-host? Do you find time to read for fun? Or are you more like me and use all that time to watch TV and hour-long YouTube video essays? Let us know in the comments or hit us on Twitter at y'all_different, Instagram and Tumblr at Creative Differences Podcast, Facebook.com/Creative Differences PC, or a TikTok at Creative Differences Pod. I get so tired of saying all of those. I'm going to just delete some at random. If you want to talk about how dope Goosebumps is and how R.L. Stine will never stop going in, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at a king named Simba.
Hi, if you want to talk about Allie Hazelwood supremacy, you can talk to me on Instagram at Stegosaurus.
Please come talk to me about the Locked Tomb. None of these hoes have read it, and it's really upsetting. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at DuckMcGuck.
None of us had even heard of it until just now. If you guys want to talk to me and ask me how I managed to finish Fourth Wing and The Chalice of the Gods in the span of 1 month, and possibly finish Iron Flame in the span of 3 books in the span of 2 months for the first time since ever, probably high school, actually. You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram. On Twitter, you can find me at Demi_Joie. Joie is spelled Joie. And you guys can find me on Instagram at Dreamy Films. Dreamy is spelled DREEMI. Thanks again for joining us. Tune in next week if I actually edit this episode fast enough. Next week, we will be getting back to movie reviews because the SAG strike is officially over. So we will be reviewing The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and The Marvels.
Yep.
Woo-woo.
We back, baby.
The movie machine works again.
Fixed it.
It was a dry few weeks where we'd just be like, do we want to record something? Okay, what?
What are we allowed to fan cast? But yeah, movies are back. Fun times. All right, It's been different. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Emma. Bye. No, oh, now you're quiet.
Yo.